Good evening from Dubai, and I formally want to welcome all the participants who are here today. Thank you for investing your 60 minutes with us, and we'll try and make it worth your while. We are going to have loads of fun because we have a very interesting panel of speakers who are drawn in from different parts of the world. We have John Scott, who's based in New York. We have Arnaud, who's come in from France. And we have Rajiv Daswani, who I like to call the local lad, and also a very inspiring friend that I have here in Dubai. Let me just reintroduce myself. My name is Sharad Agarwal. I am the founder of onlywebinars.com. And as some of you might know, Only Webinars is a post-COVID creation. And today we have north of 300 people who've registered to participate in this webinar, and they are from 30 odd countries. So we truly have a global audience, and we look forward to engaging with you. So feel free to use the chat or the Q&A tab anytime to post your questions, comments. And the good thing about today's webinar is that it is not scripted. And I promise you that there are no presentations, there are no speeches, and nobody's preaching anything. We are going to share our life's learnings with you. We are going to help you create your own roadmap, right, going forward. We perhaps might provide you a compass at best, and then you got to figure out where you are and where you want to go. So we'll get started right away, and I'll ask each one of our speakers to please introduce themselves, and then we will get to the business on hand. So let me throw the ball to you, John Scott.
Great, thanks, Sharad. I'm John Scott Turco. I'm based in New York and Paris and Dubai, frankly. Those are my three cities. And I've been a management consultant and organizational psychologist for 25 plus years, working primarily across several verticals, including banking, fashion, manufacturing, and a host of others. My passion in work is to connect people with their purpose and to make sure that they're aligned with who they are, what they do, and how they show up authentically every day. So happy to be here, everybody.
Super. Arnaud, you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Sharad. Thanks, John. Thanks, Georgie. Very happy to be here. I spent the last 20 years in 30 different countries, last 15 years in US, 4 years in Japan, 1 year in China. Last 3 years, I was very much involved with the Middle East, Dubai, and all around as well, mostly as a coach, as a trainer, and as an inspiring event producer. And now we're back in France, and we're launching an online training company for mental health and inspiration.
Amazing. Rajiv?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Rajiv Daswani, the founder of a happiness coaching center here in Dubai. Been in business for over 20 years. I've done, as an entrepreneur, I've set up engineering companies. And then I decided to step into well-being. And the word happiness popped up, guys. And everyone was like, whoa, happiness, that sounds interesting. Well-being, very interesting. And the pandemic happened, and now we all understand why well-being is so important. And that's why we are here to ask that question, Sharad. What's next? How do we deal with this?
Yes, and that's a question that everybody is asking. And nobody really has the answer because there is no CEO on this planet who was prepared for the pandemic, right? Not even one. So it's taken all of us by surprise. And I think all of us are figuring out what's next in our own way. So I'm going to bounce it back to maybe John Scott and ask you what have been your biggest learnings post-COVID?
Great, thanks, Sharad. I think it's been an interesting, to put it mildly, year plus for all of us. And as I work with my clients around the world over this past year, there's been a dramatic evolution in their mindset as to the initial knee jerk a year ago from now, in let's say late May, was we need everybody back in the office as soon as possible. And I remember vividly conversations with clients where I would lean into the Zoom, which for them was pretty new back then. And I would say, it's over. I said, you need to think of a new paradigm. You need to think of new ways to engage your teams, clients, and really address brand new ways of working. And if you lean into that, and you take the opportunity to really listen and to learn and grow, you really have some opportunities and they present themselves. And I'm happy to say, aside from all the heartache and loss and things that we've all experienced around the world this past year, many clients and companies and people that we've all talked about several times amongst ourselves here on the panel, they've taken the opportunity to really expand their mindset beyond where it was or where we could have ever predicted they would be. So that's been a real key point. And I want to make sure for those who are in attendance that you know that our purpose is not in this call to parrot, it's a brand new world. And we really want to drill down in terms of your mindset and actions that you can walk away tangibly with a new way of looking at things and maybe take action in a way that's purposeful and impactful for you and for your teams. So I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. What do you think, Rajiv? What's on your mind for you right now?
Well, I love what you're talking about, and I echo the word purpose there. You and I are very closely connected to that word, but now more than ever, I think for organizations and for leaders and for everyone out there, regardless of whether you are a CEO of an organization, you work in an organization, even if you're doing your own thing, it's finding that intrinsic inspiration that drives you, and nothing can be bigger to any of us at this point in time than really asking that question: why are we doing what we're doing? How are we connecting to that that magical word? What always scares me, guys, and I throw this out to all of you as well, and to everyone attending today, is a lot of people have thrown this word around, and it's picked up a lot of buzz, right? So what's your purpose? But the question that I think we need to really ask ourselves is not only why are we here, but how can we use that why to inspire us to actually move us into some actions, so that we can then really look at this what's next and say, okay, how do we roll up our sleeves and move forward now that we know why we're doing what we're doing? What do you guys think?
Yes.
Anand?
Yeah. So I just break it down in 6 things for me. What has changed from what I experienced with our clients and myself and everyone I know. 6 things. First is, it's really a global world. We've been talking about it forever and ever, but now I see small company for the very first time, because of digital, becoming global. They were only selling in their region. So now there's no one who's only local. Doesn't exist. It seems 90% of the company. 2, it's been said in a different way, but from now we have to manage differently with the why of every employee, of course, and then with the semi-remote work habit that we're instilling in everyone. Managing differently means taking some time to listen to each of the employee, each of your teammates, and giving the time they want, which means in my case, how to, as a CEO, how to accelerate empathy within yourself or people you know. And if some of the managers, I know it seems more than the half of the attendees are CEOs, if you need to teach empathy to some of your manager because they just don't know, teach them. There's actually clues to that. I also saw 3 more things. One is, and it's been said by Rajiv and John as well, is now, since all of us are so busy with finding our why, finding new business, we need to find a way quickly to find more energy within ourselves and for more of our employees, right? So we need to, just as we track accounting, we need to track what gives us energy now and forever for us and each employee. If it's some of them, it's to walk in nature or playing chess or playing with kids, whatever it is. But we need to know what's the pushing point for each of the employee to have more energy. One more thing that changed during the COVID, it's the acceleration of coaching in residence. I have done that for one of the company here in France, Bordeaux, which means all of you can take a local coach, have him work part-time once a week for a few hours in your company, physically or remotely, and spend 20 to 30 minutes per employee in doing just active listening. While you're doing it, helps the guy, helps your company, helps the world. and will bring guarantee more productivity. So I see an acceleration of coaching and residence program across the world. And finally, with my business, we see the acceleration, of course, of digital learning like we're doing now. The COVID accelerated digital learning training by 50%. This is the sixth thing I've seen during the COVID during the year.
Great.
If I may jump in, sorry, John, if I may just jump in on the digital front, because as you guys know, my day job is cyber gear and I've been in the digital field for like 25 plus years. So I have firsthand witnessed the digital acceleration that people keep talking about. So I'm not talking about a McKinsey study or a Bain study. I'm giving you firsthand experience. Earlier, we used to get maybe 3, 4, 5 new leads a week, right, of people who wanted to go digital. That has exploded exponentially, I would say. Everybody wants to go digital and everything is digital. If you want to sell a car today, you better know how to do it digitally, right? If you're a doctor, you better know how to consult online. And if you are a restaurant, you better prepare the ghost kitchens, because everybody is not going to come to dine in, right? But you still need to survive and generate revenue. So let's forget about the traditional ways of doing business, because those will not work anymore, right? We just have to adapt to the new ways, and not only adapt for the sake of adapting, do our own analysis, create new business models with the new realities of life, and work towards that. We are more likely to succeed in that scenario rather than continue to do things the way we used to. John Scott, I know you want to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Arnaud and Sharad and Rajiv. I think we're all aligned in this, and I think I look at this from a bifurcated approach, right? So in terms of how are we feeling, and how are we engaging teams, and really what is the strategy? How can this translate to strategy and actionable business practices? And you just touched on it just now, which is new ways of working. And I think of Kars and actually Simon Sinek too, which is infinite versus finite ways of working. So the model that we've all adapted now, hopefully, is an infinite mindset, which is we're learning as we go, we're learning and expanding, versus finite mindset, which is we're just behaving based on old paradigms and old information. So how do we take this infinite mindset and take it forward? And we do that. We've done that with COVID because we've had to, right? We've had to learn because no one had a plan. There was no plan. I have yet to find an organization that had a pandemic plan that said, yeah, this has gone right to plan. No, I've not heard it at all. So how can we take this and learn? I have a few of my clients. I was talking to a CFO down on Wall Street last week, and reminding him of our conversation about a year ago where he had said, we're going to lose everything because we are not equipped to be remote. No one is prepared for this. And guess what? His team has performed exceptionally well. The challenge for him is to how to harness that performance and really think, as we've been saying and as we say today, what's next? How do you engage your teams and their subgroups, his N-1, N-2, and cascading down to really perform in the new paradigm and brand new, I have this little sheet here, brand new ways of working, right? So how do we look at this now specifically? Because it's great to talk about how people feel and how they're behaving and how we can engage them. And these are all critically important for leaders and for organizations. And how do we drive this from a strategic business perspective going forward? So I think an infinite mindset is critical. And I think we've also learned, and I'll wrap up on this point and kick it over back to you guys, really looking at radical trust. How do we take teams that we weren't sure if this one or that one, guess what? They've all proven or not proven their ability to perform and to adapt. And our organizations have done as well. So how do we engage in that kind of duality of strategy and purposeful movement forward organizationally and trust? How does that mesh together to help drive the future of our organizations? How does that land with you, Rajiv?
You know what? Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's gold in some of the things you've said. And while you were saying that earlier, I don't know if you guys can see this, but as aligned as we always are, it just starts this is now a reality for everyone, is how can we start to humanize organizations? We talk about radical trust, we talk about bringing in, and organizations do this. A lot of meetings, if you guys remember before pandemic, a lot of organizations say, listen, we do this, we check in with our people. But the check-in is really, it used to be pretty superficial. How's your day? Good. Okay, let's go on, right? I mean, it was very fast. Today, that doesn't work, because when you ask someone how you're doing, whether they're working from home, they might have people out there who are not well. They may be dealing with some serious concerns, and you have to show up as a human. Every organization now, regardless of what you do, and Sharad, adding to your point there, as we try to move into this digital era where we have to connect with the digital world, we still have to bring this new element of the humanizing of organizations. That means looking at our stakeholders. So back to your point, John Scott, radical trust is really emitting from the nucleus of the organization and the CEO all the way through the organization to the point where we can create impact, a bigger, grander, better impact for us all. Now, when we say that, it sounds really difficult to achieve. There are steps we can take, right? So even the small step, like I started saying, not only when checking in, but saying, okay, meeting everyone where they're at. First and foremost, it's everyone, people, have you noticed people would like to pull you along, right? You see people going, no, you have to go this way. Not everyone's ready to move there yet. So meet them where they're at, both emotionally, meet them emotionally. And that means that bring emotions now to work. There was a poll done, guys, and I throw this out to everyone here. I'm very curious to know what the audience thinks of this, but there was actually a poll done when they asked organizations, what was your thought on bringing emotions to work? Because in the olden days, it was something which is, no, you don't do that. And majority of people who answered that, who were the working folk, they said they welcomed emotions at work. They actually wanted to express them. They felt that when they were subduing them, it was building up unnecessary stress, right? If managers were like, okay, we could also live the post of showed the management was okay showing trust. It means that people are ready to show emotions at work, and this will bring vulnerability. It will bring trust, radical trust. So throwing that out there, reinforcing that.
I'd like to, if it's okay with you guys, to look at the chat, because George has some questions. Laura has some questions as well. And I think, let's just go chronologically. So George was asking about the biggest opportunities in a post-COVID world. And I think that it's interesting, other opportunities that are at the highest level, those that affect the most people. So cybersecurity, chatbots, AI. So the convergence of business and technology is a place that I really love to play, and we all do. We've talked about this many times when the four of us met in Dubai. How do we look at this? And I think it's really interesting. It's not just a healthcare operations, but how do we look at this in a way, to your question, George, and teams ready to be motivated? It's very funny. Certainly the world needs water coolers. How do we do that? And that's really a critical piece. How can we foster a culture that's engaging and motivating and purpose-driven, as well as just social? And it's a challenge that we're all facing. I know my son began a new company, working with a new company, and they have digital happy hours. And they all get together at 4 o'clock on a Friday once a month, and it's just everyone's on screen. It's very active, and I think it's that's how they're attempting to do it. We all have our own ways, so I wonder when we look at this. And Laura's asking about survival was 2020, and now we're looking at this infinite mindset. How do we go about this when the change is constant? But I'm reminded, and I'll close on this point for this, of Jack Welch's point, which is, when the pace of change outside of organization is faster than inside, the end is near. Well, guess what? The pace of change outside is frenetic and rapid and all over the place. And the pace of change inside, from what I've seen, is similarly frenetic and very, very fast. So we are solving problems. We are moving at very fast, rapid succession towards problems and solutions. And organizations that will thrive in this new world going forward will have a plan. What I said to my client last year was, it's over. Like, everyone in the office all the time for the purpose of being in the office has to be modified. When we look at talent and we look at performance for an organizational perspective, we're looking at large organizations. Google just announced, Twitter had announced it previously. They are decentralized. They are working remotely. How do they affect their corporate culture? Because that's one of the biggest things. I've been to Google's offices many times down in Manhattan downtown, and it's the culture there is centered around the amazing lunch and that they provide for their teams, and all the other things in terms of the work teams and collaboration and the impromptu conversations. And that's a real challenge for organizations going forward. How do they engage? Thanks everyone for their questions. I'll invite the guys to jump in. I'm going to look at the chat as well.
You touched, John Scott, on the speed at which companies are able to reinvent themselves. My favorite question that I ask companies here is very simple. How fast is your company? Right? So it's not about how big is your company, and speed matters because you have to be as fast as your customer, right? Your customer is one moment on Twitter, the next on Clubhouse, and then on Facebook. So do you have the wherewithal, the technology, the omni-channel solution, so to say, to move at the speed at which the customer is moving, right? Because now you don't have that manpower that you used to have earlier to track that progress. So you better use the right technology to work at the same speed of the customer. So I think that's a new challenge as well that organizations have to prepare themselves for. Arnaud, you want to say something?
Yeah, does it work? At my,
Yeah.
I can see that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, good, it's working the paper. For me, it's all about system thinking, right? We've been speaking about system thinking, Harvard Business Schools, and the top INSEAD of Europe for years. But now, again, we just have to think in terms of ecosystem, right? Product. For the very first time, I was at ISC Business School, 2012, and they say, for the very first time, innovation cannot be every 10 years, it has to be every 3 years. Now, post-pandemic, they say innovation has to be now every 3 months. Every 3 months. And the very difference in terms of innovation, because it's systemic, because it's different ecosystem, not only innovation has to happen every 3 months, it has to happen with maybe 2 or 3 products at the same time. No one has the luxury to just work on one product because some new guy faster than ever can surpass you in a garage somewhere, not just in San Francisco now, can be globally. So because of system thinking, for me, it's a way to learn on how to think with ecosystem, to build more product faster, to learn to work using the word of John, with radical trust. Because of that, you need to fire people faster than ever if it doesn't work, or quit your team. Even though I'm one of the pioneers in the Chief Happiness Officer training in the world, yet I've launched my startup 2 months ago. One of the team, web marketing team, doesn't get me, doesn't work, doesn't go fast enough, maybe because it's France and not US, I don't know. And I'm like, we can't work together. It doesn't work. And I prefer we say now than 12 months down the line. And if you're not on the same energy wave, right? If you're not on the same vision, it's better say it now. There is a book in America, very famous, I'm sure, John, you know, called, you know, the book about hard conversation, right? How to have hard conversation. The timing is now much more, what's the word?
Very fast.
Right. It's now more than ever, we need to have those hard conversations, because if people don't have the same vision, we can't waste the time, or we can't have the luxury that they will understand. It's okay if they don't have the skills, but as long as they have the potential. Now more than ever, don't choose people with skills, but choose people with the potential, the desire to thrive, the desire to go faster in your company, or with a team you build around you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say for this.
I want to jump in on that. Sorry, John Scott, do you want to pick it up? Okay, so I was going to add to a layer to what you just said. You know, we talk about, you know, earlier on the chat, I just threw a word, I said, we need to inspire, you know, not motivate. I mean, organizations now have to stop. And I don't say that as imperative, but just look at the energy we all waste, like you just said, where energies are not matching. Well, there is ways to work around that. That is ensuring that we do have values in place, first and foremost, right? And no longer is just 5 words going to work. It's really about living values. Is our corporate culture really alive? And are we bringing in people who are driven by the same purpose? Are they here to create impact? So I'll go back to one of the biggest differences. You know, what I've seen is this generation, and maybe the one before this, is we've been so inspired by books, is that we need to read a book to tell us to operate through the heart, John Scott. Is that scary? Right? I mean, is this the reality of where we're showing up? I mean, do we have to tell you to show up from the heart, when isn't that the only space we should be showing up as visionaries, as impact makers? And then if you really want to measure how many products we bring to the market, how digital do we go, how do we innovate, then the question we need to be asking, the question that I think is imperative here, is how are we creating impact, and how is it visible? What impact are we creating, and how can we create it now? When you bring that urgency to your thought process, you start to find innovative ways to think out of the box. You know, I had this conversation the other day with someone who said, I want to drive my team to have more energy because I know they're dealing with, I said, well, tap into their purpose. He goes, wait a second, how do I tap into their purpose? Because we have our mission statement. I said, wait a second, do you have your purpose in place? And he goes, I said, okay, let's start there. If you can start with your purpose and know why you're doing what you're doing, I'm sure we can recorrect your vision statement a little, so we know why your company is doing what they're doing. And every single person in that organization also should be driven by their own purpose, and your organization should help them meet it. And finally, if we all are aligned that way, can you imagine the impact we can create? And then you measure it, right? So this is the question that we need to start to ask ourselves, is, are we as organizations creating impact? And is it visible, right? And that's where I feel the wheels will start to turn.
Agreed. And I think it's interesting, you know, I read something recently, which I couldn't have thought was any more appropriate, which said, when we're talking now about strategy and implementing new strategies in real time, the pace of change is so accelerated. And I read something really recently about CX and about employee engagement and employee experience. And it said, if your employee engagement relies on everyone being in the office, you have a leadership issue, not employee engagement issue. And that is so spot on. So I'm working with organizations now about how to engage their teams, how to have them working more productively and more aligned because they're geographically dispersed. And as we look at the chat now, we talk about the move from like VUCA to BANI, right? You know, how do we look at like brittle, anxious, nonlinear, what's the other one? Incomprehensible, I think something like that. I think if we look at this, these are all really active and present for so many of us in the world. So if we try to translate this from the, you know, and the soft side to the hard side, because I can just hear all of my C-suite clients saying, this is all really great and we believe it's important. And guess what? My P&L is all over the place. You know, my P&L is in 75 directions, and I've let go of a whole team. You know, to Arnaud's point, it's so critical. I know the organizations I work with, there's a very high percentage that has let go of almost an entire level. Is in addition to other people all over, there's people who have shown themselves good, you know, good and bad, to be productive and essential. And there's also, to the other side, and I saw this in the chat earlier, there's been a group who've shown themselves to be superfluous. I hate to sound so simple and trite about it, but you know, when at the beginning I found everyone was on the Zoom, right? We had the whole team on the Zoom. And then, you know what, I need to get things done. So you know what I need? I need Arnaud, I need Sharad, I need Rajiv, and the four of us are going to talk and make decisions. And guess what? Number 6, number 8, number 10, who was on the call beforehand, we realize a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and we're thinking to ourselves, what are they doing? Like how are they driving the future of the organization? How can they look at the brand new ways of working, right? Are they going to come forward with us, or are they part of the finite thought process that we were stuck in? Because here's the thing, and I'll wrap up on this point and kick it back to you guys. These were supposed to set us free, right? We all they did, in my opinion, was give us access to each other 24 hours a day. And it blurred the line from home and work and productive and rest and play and family. And now we have this real world example none of us wanted, none of our organizations were prepared for, to say, now we have to say, okay, how do we define work? What does work mean for us? And again, I can hear my C-suite clients, and my phone is already blowing up with text messages from a few of them saying, well, yeah, but I have a P&L, I have a board, I have shareholders too. The shareholders they're all panicking. How do we do this? So we have to find that balance between, you know, making sure people are engaged, making sure, and I see this in the chat as well, we're looking at this from a human perspective, more so than ever. And I think, one of the most profound conversations I had was just a few days ago with a C-suite client of mine who was, by all accounts, a hard driving CFO of a person. And he said, my team is really productive remotely, and the CEO and the board want everyone back in the office because they're justifying their fixed capex and the 20-year lease they have. I feel super empathetic to my clients in the commercial retail space because I don't know what they're going to do. So for organizations that have this enormous fixed capex that they're tied to, how do they justify the space? And I said, well, the space is there. More people in there is not making it any less expensive. I know in your mind it makes it more rationally appropriate, but you can't have everyone in the office when people are afraid, people are scared, people are still nervous, people are still managing and juggling their kids. I mean, Arnaud and Rajiv, I know you guys have little ones. I mean, so you have to juggle this all in this mix, and the flip side of it is my daughter and son just started new jobs. They're out of uni for a year or two and they're working remotely. They're working remotely. They have their lunch break. They go outside, they take a walk, they finish up. Guess what? Their commute is 10 seconds. Their commute at the end of the day, beginning of the day to lunch, from lunch. So how did you're going to say to them now, you know what, commute an hour each way, 5 days a week, and sit in the office and wait for things to do or find things for you to do. So I think it's really a humongous paradigm shift in so many directions. So I'll kick it back to you, Arnaud.
I'd like to actually bring in the community angle to this conversation. I mean, pandemic has made us practice social distancing, etc. But I think we are more connected to people than ever before, right? To our team, to our family, to our community. And this bonding has kind of helped. I mean, I've been working from home throughout ever since this pandemic hit, right? And I find I know more about what's happening in my family now than ever before, because I used to be out for those 8-10 hours, right? And was never there. And now you seem to relate better. You become more empathetic automatically because you relate to real issues. And I think the community has a very important role in wellness, in mental health issues that some people are facing day in, day out, working from home with the same kind of schedule, no interaction with anybody else. So what do you guys think about what organizations can do? Do they need to hire professional teams and professional organizations to deal with this crisis? I think it's a crisis of sorts.
Well, for me, it comes down, I don't know if you see
Your magic paper.
Yeah.
magic paper. I love it.
Culture of courage. I like it.
Yeah. So it's, for me, community, I mean, it's the master word. I mean, I spend so much time in tribes, and everything I've done, we've done as a team was around culture. And culture of courage is what is the mix of traditions, of rituals, and this, you might need a coach, but you can just meet someone, the most people officer within your company, who install rituals. And again, many of you CEO, you think it's a waste of time because they don't work during the time of a ritual. It might be half a day, one day. Guess what? It's going to work long term. So you might, yes, lose a few days. Long term, a culture of courage is, for me, just a mix of very, very positive tradition and ritual, so we can increase creativity and risk. I mean, just in your zone, I've done a bunch of work for Kareem in Dubai, and those guys, it's exactly this. I mean, they spent the entire management, 200 people, a few years ago before being bought out for $3 billion, just with everyone, so they can learn from each other. And we had to convince a few people in the company that those time will work. Will save them years of maybe of a non-engagement. The more you get people close together, whether it's through a coach and psychologist, ritual, online training like we do now, whatever, those really good webinars where you have 4 coaches for the price of 1 and free today, you gotta go for it, right? When you get a cocktail of positivity and you won't waste 1 minute, because going back to one of your points earlier, we can't waste. And as you say, I have a 3 years old now. So every minute of my life is counted now. right? Has to be really good fun. And I know fun and joy, it's good, you know, a shot of joy and a shot of fun gets me going. And then a shot of good business gets me going financially, right? And I need both. And we all need both. And for a company, you need a shot of joy for your employee, a shot of positive culture, whatever way we do.
It's such a great point, Arnaud, just to jump in for a second. I think beforehand, I actually thought of myself, like, what are the lessons of coronavirus? What are the lessons of this time? And I think what you touched on is so essential, which is, I think beforehand, and this is my observation, I'll own this and I'll say this, many of the leaders and organizations I've worked with, and I think Rajiv touched on it earlier, like I would say to you, you know, hey, how's the family? And it became a quick, almost like formality, you know, oh, good, they're good. Let's get into the subject matter. And I think to a large degree, many organizations were like this when it came to anything that wasn't affecting business. And that is impossible today because you have such a humongous groundswell of leaders and of employees and of organizations who now, guess what? They have time with their families. They have time avoiding commuting. The impact on the environment has been tremendously positive. And so I know where I live near the beach. I see the rabbits that would run away from me when I ran in the morning. They're just kind of sitting there now in groups, kind of looking, going, yeah, he's just running by. It's wild. So when you look at this now, this interplay between home and work and life and passion and health, and I mean health in as broadest sense as possible, these are all factors organizations were, to a degree, maybe not ignoring, but pushing to the side. Like when I hear the terms soft skills, it always frustrates me because guess what? Organizations are run by people who have emotions, who have needs, who have desires, who have passions, who have purpose. And if we ignore those things because we think they're soft skills, the organization is going to suffer, clients are going to suffer, shareholder value is going to suffer. So now we have this incredible confluence of people, passion, and purpose. And I think we've touched on it over and over again. So how does that land for you, Rajiv? What do you think?
I love it. I love what we're saying. Obviously, we all are aligning to this, but there was an amazing comment and I wanted to address that. And the comment was, we are all speaking about organization side of things. What about the human? Yeah, what happens to a person? And I think we need to address that, obviously. When we speak organizations, I think we always take it for granted. This is always leadership process driven, but not today's conversation. Today, you have to be human to show up in an organization. So we're not speaking from the hat of just being, sitting on the leadership thought process or, a macro, but we're really zooming into the micro of this, of the way we're working as humans first.
Yeah.
So what is it telling us? It's telling us that the new generation, someone put a comment on a new generation coming in. So yes, there's new expectations, but guess what? The reality is absolutely the same for every generation today. COVID is a reality for all of us. It's reinvented the wheel for so many things, right? What is it giving us? It's giving us a brand new opportunity. Of course, when you look at things from a space of gratitude and say, wait a second, what can we take away from this? Business, humans come first. That's a big lesson. And what does that mean? Like you said, John Scott, bang on. Emotions, yes, tick. We need to now understand them. We have to stop asking this question. What's the ROI on these soft skills? And because you know what? Science has done that already for you. Just make an effort, you find the returns on investing on your people. But as a human coming in the door of an organization, you mentioned your kids, right? And there's a lot of us now. My kids are just my kids are really small, but I want to give them that opportunity tomorrow to go out there and live their dreams, right? However that is, right? Then you read pre-pandemic engagements at organizations. Wasn't that scary for all of you? 85% of people were disengaged at work. Doesn't that send a flag somewhere, right? What is that telling us? People are going to work, but they're not loving it. Is that what it's sending a message? Yeah. As Arnaud, you are a CEO, you started your organization. I'm one, I have my organization, but I want everybody to love what they do, right? I want them to be inspired to go out there and make an impact, right? So that's each and every single one of us needs that, right? To drive us. Now we're working from home. The people that we love, if you're fortunate enough to live with them, are in the same room with us, and you get to see them. You can have a meeting with your kids on your lap. Could you guys do that 2 years ago? I mean, you can now. And a lot of those walls are falling. It tells us vulnerability and trust, authenticity are coming to the table now, and people are willing to listen.
Yeah, it takes courage. I think it takes courage. And I think we're seeing people stepping into that space of courage more regularly now than I think they did previously. And I think that's a real challenge. And I think for organizations to thrive going forward, I saw something I want to go back to because it was in the chat a while up. If we can quantify the cost of this.
Good question.
And
yeah.
it's interesting because I think it's so difficult to get your arms around, but there's also the human cost and the real hard cost. I think for leaders to look at this and say, how can we harness the power of community in a decentralized place? So how do we take our teams and really how does this change going forward? I'll own this. I had a meeting a few weeks ago and we're all vaccinated and we said, should we meet in person? And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Maybe we'll meet in person. This is crazy. It was the first time I was having this conversation. And guess what? My morning started off and we all started off and we kind of to message each other, said, let's meet on Zoom, because I didn't want to dedicate an hour of commuting and an hour commuting home and missing out on my workout. And I wanted to listen to a podcast my friend was on. And I said, no. And this is going to be a challenge. It occurred to me that I was representing part of the challenges we're going to face going forward, which is it's so convenient. Aside from being necessary in the past, now it's convenient. Now it's changed everything. A lot of my work, as we've spoke about in Arnaud, and I know all of us have done this, which is large scale events, large scale transformation. And how can we harness the power of this collective where we once did it in person and effectively into the new way of working? So how can leaders lead as well? Let me just take a look here at Arundahi experience and coach. How are leaders who are reluctant for this connection, making changes? What are the 3 things to do to make it happen? It's like, I'm going to pick this question out and ask all of us. As coaches, how are leaders who are reluctant for this connection making this change? And I think I'll go real quick. Everyone I talked to was reluctant for this change. They were wanting, I remember going, really, we have to, this is going to be all of April. We have to wait till May to get back to normal. And then it was June, and then it was fall.
Right.
And who knows?
Right.
What do you think?
Right. Two things. I remember the words of Mark Cuban, the American businessman, owner of baseball team. The guy on Shark Tank. A few months ago, I think that was May, 2-3 months in the pandemic, and he said, in the next 18 months, I think he says something along the line of 30% of leaders basically will die, which means, we'll just not go to the next phase. Those who try to retain, and he's a big businessman, right? 50,000 employees, I think, all of his firm. He said those who will try to retain all employees by just coercion, force, just trying to not inspire them, but just trying to asking more, instead of looking for potential, again, just trying to result. And they said they will die. They will not understand the phase we're in. We need to, it's been said so many times. We work with HR. This is what 100 HR globally told us the last few months. I don't know if you guys see emotional intelligence, right? Courage, conscious leadership, diversity and inclusion. The same HR that pre-pandemic didn't really believe in those would only provide trainings around those lines for those who are really asking about conscious leadership, really want about diversity and feminine leadership. And now they know they have to go to what I call the essential skills, what we call the soft skills, right? So those who, once again, take the time to take distance and say, I invest in that so I can get future leads, so I can get more productivity. Just accept. I was on the phone with 14 procurement officers on Friday in European continent. And I usually talk to the HR department, but it was sort of a test. And all of them say, all of us are burnout, all our employees are burnout, and all of the business unit manager want employee to come back for more result. We don't know what's going to happen between June and September. The employee don't want to come back. They're depressed. There's numbers thrown out by a burnout specialist that 30% of employees are in the process of being burned out. 30%. So if you just ask him more, they're just not going to produce. So just take a time. Only those who you only fire those who don't want to change, don't want to. I don't care if they don't do anything, but as long as they want to change, they have the potential, they understand the vision. They just say, I mean, one of my conference speaker, one of my trainer told me, he said, I'm in a burnout, and he's a trainer. Give me a few more weeks and I go back. Fine. Just be transparent. I'm fine. I know you're going to deliver. Fine. Let's cancel everything with you. It's just, he needs time to totally rest. We cancel everything with him. He's going to come back. He's got the energy. I give him the power to feel. Those who basically don't want to change anymore say, I'm not going to do anything anymore. Those you have to, I think, worry a little bit.
I think I'm not yeah, go ahead, Rajiv. No, I was just saying that we are in an always-on economy, right? The gig economy. And it's very important for us to know when to switch off. Otherwise, burnout is inevitable. So each one of us has to make that call in terms of when we sign off from work, because working from home, it's an ongoing thing, right? So you need to have those pockets where you simply don't answer, check your emails or stay away from WhatsApp. And if you don't do that digital detox, it's going to get to all of us, right?
Yeah, you're making me laugh, Sharad, because I had a call last week with one of the C-suite I coach, and he was frustrated with another person there who I coached previously, who was one of his direct reports. And he said, they're not responsive. And he went on and on and on. And I sent them a message, and it took them 2 hours to get back to me. So I let him talk, and I asked him, what time did you send the message? He goes, well, what difference does that make? I said, well, it makes a big difference. He goes, well, I messaged them on Sunday at 8:30 at night, and they waited until almost 11 to respond. I said, but they responded on Sunday night. I said that you're not paying them enough to be on, 24/7. And there's no one should ever be on 24/7. And I love asking CEOs this question when they say, I work all the time, and I'm in the office at 6. I used to be in the office at 6 a.m. and I would stay there till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night every day, and then work all weekends. And I would ask them, I say, which one or both of these is your job structured inefficiently, or are you incompetent? And like no one ever hit them with that question. And I was like, that's insane. It's an insane thing. I think 30% burnout, Arnaud, is a low estimate in terms of what's possible now, because everyone is trying so hard to justify their jobs, right? They're saying, okay, well, I need to be showing that I'm working. There's this presupposition, which is false, that if I'm in the office, I'll quote the office, physical office, and I look across the room and I see Arnaud at his computer, and I see Rajiv on the phone, and I see Sharad typing something and talking to someone that, everyone's working. Guess what? Arnaud's making travel plans for his family to go away. Sharad is on the phone trying to arrange what's for dinner with his wife in the middle of projects. And Rajiv is sitting there trying to figure out how to get on the phone with Sharad and Arnaud because they're busy doing other things. So it's very interesting to me to this false level of comfort that leaders have had when they just see in the office. I just need to see them in the office. And again, as I said previously, which is something I didn't say I read, which is if you need to engage your teams in the office as the means of engagement, you have a leadership issue, not an engagement issue. So how do we do this going forward? It's really fast.
John Scott, I think there's two words that we need to talk about there. And that's basically autonomy and accountability. And so there's all these tools in this magic hat, right? That everyone has access to. But when we talk about these long working hours, and this is what it needs to be for me to be accountable, the question is, everybody has a different pace of working, right? So again, there's studies where someone needs to work out in the morning, he has to have a different, schedule than somebody else. Everyone works at different pace and everyone has a different optimal level, right? So if you look at this last 2 years, what have we found? We found people working from home. Many of them it's very conducive for many people. They're actually producing, they're showing up accountable, and the results are, there is organizations out there and people who feel that they are actually performing really well. What are we
And
lacking?
better.
The social connections. I mean,
Productivity is increased for a lot. Yeah.
absolutely. So that's one aspect of this. The second part is the autonomy, right? So we discussed about autonomy, your scheduling, how you do that. Two is the accountability. Can you be accountable for what you're here to do, right? But three, the most important thing is why is a burnout also happening? I mean, we talk about, I throw it back to you. 85% of people a few years ago were disengaged at work, what Gallup said. Now you're telling me someone says 40%, I think it's a little higher, are burnt out. Not only do they not want to be there, but now they're exhausted, they can't be there. So what does that tell you? How important is the well-being of everyone now at work? Can we ignore it? My next question to everybody is, so someone asked me, what about mental, what is next? I said, well, mental well-being. We need to proactively look at this now. The world is telling us right off, we need to now show up and start to pay attention to, yes, the health of our employees is important, but more importantly, also our mental well-being. Are we proactively taking that into consideration? What else are we doing as an organization, as a person, to ensure that we have balance? Everyone talks about work-life balance, throwing it out to you guys. Sharad, I'll throw it to you. Work-life balance, it's changed now, right? I mean, you're working from home. Yeah. Right? What does that look like? What's that work-life balance?
Actually, the truth is I love it. Am I looking forward to going back to office and working? Answer is no. Because, it's so comfortable. I work at my own pace. I know my productivity hours, right? And I'm with the family. I save time commuting. The planet is greener. I just commented in the chat, right? With less cars on the road and less planes in the skies. You can now see clear skies like never before. Look at China, look at New Delhi, look at India. For the first time now, there is fresh air to breathe. So there are so many pluses that we are overlooking because we are getting caught in this trap that, hey, post-COVID, can we survive? Will we be there at the end of the tunnel to see that light? And one important thing for all of us in this room is that tough times never last, but tough people do. So each one of us needs to toughen up in our own ways, right? And we will be on the other side. It's a matter of time. Nobody knows that magic answer. But if we are well prepared, then we are in a better shape to take care of whatever happens next, right? So there have been so many positive learnings out of the last 12 months. And each one of us now, I think, after sharing our life's experiences, we can create our own roadmap. Getting back to our topic on hand, I would like each one of you to give your comments in terms of 2 or 3 practical tips that everybody in the audience can actually use when they go away from this webinar in their day-to-day life when they plan their future activities. So I throw it back to any of you who would like to take the ball.
Great. I'll talk about what I mentioned earlier, and as we bring it back to creating your roadmap for the next 12 months, I would encourage everyone on the call to think about this specifically: infinite versus finite mindset, and the learning. And this goes back to the authors of that book, because Simon Sinek wrote an adaptation of the original Karst book. So infinite learning is in the moment, evolutionary, present, and up to date. It's constantly evolving, growing. It's required for all of us as leaders and driving our organizations to future success. The past paradigm of finite has been based on previous learning, previous paradigms, and guess what? It will never work. So I encourage all of you and all the people on the call watching this to think with an infinite mindset, expansive mindset, and how you can take all the learning in the moment and going forward, and try not to put cement around everything and say, well, this is where we are, and let's drill into the ground in the foundation. This is evolutionary. So it's evolutionary and revolutionary. We have to keep moving and keep agile. And I'll say one closing point. We talk about harnessing the emotions of our teams. Someone I worked with years ago gave a wonderful definition of emotions. And she said, emotions are energy in motion. If we look at the need for energy in organizations and our teams, and we realize that energy comes from emotion, in motion, it's really a game changer for leaders and organizations. And I'll kick it over to you guys now.
It's a bit too much point, but here we go anyway. Basically, I'll read it. It's sort of how to,
Now,
how you can see, right?
stop moving.
Online training, coaching and residence to teach courage. You can actually teach courage, mentioning, you know, those story John told us. So teach story of risk taker, of courage. Have your employee read book, biographies, have storytellers coming and really listening them and moving them, right, with emotions. Think ecosystem, right? Think in terms of community and ecosystem. Who do you have access to, and who has access to who you need to, right? Not just locally, but globally. Ecosystem. Diversify, not one product anymore, 3-5 product, right? We should all put everything in the same plate, right? We used to say focus. The only thing you need to focus on your core, on your why, yes, on your purpose, yes. Yet build 3, 4, 5 different products, and because we've been talking so much about this innovation, it's true that virtually we can all work, execute. From time to time, to innovate, you will still need to meet. This is how we decide this seminar, webinar, because we met in Dubai 2 months ago or something, right? And the 4 of us, let's do that, right? There was this energy. I mean, I just visited an innovation center called the Camp, 80 million structure in France. It's been an innovation center for the last few years. You know, post-COVID, you still need more innovation than ever, yet less people want to come. So what do we do?
Sure.
Perfect.
Thanks.
I love that. And then I'm going back and re-emphasizing these words. I mean, someone asked me the other day as well. It's like, you know, we've got so much on our plate. We're really stressing about, you know, what's going to happen in the next 12 months, and then addressing the human element. You know, now more than ever, ask yourself, if you haven't done it, 1 in 2 CEOs around the world and people have not worked on their own purpose. So guys, start to ask that question. Get that intrinsic driver, because that is on your side. And then, of course, everyone write the word goals. Goals is really important. But, you know, especially now, more than ever, in the next 12 months, celebrate the small wins. Set up what are the small goals you can achieve. What is that big, hairy, audacious goal that you really want to hit? You know, Arnaud's got this, you know, really nice and, you know, huge goal. We all have them. But, you know, as we keep on ticking away the small ones, we're moving. And this feels good for us as humans to keep on moving, not to be on, I mean, still has purpose, right? But movement also, keep yourself fluid. And then the connection element. You know, we need to continue to reach out and connect with people. Yes, in some places we can't meet face to face. You know, Zoom helped us. It helped us make these connections happen, right? Social connections are very important. We all understand that. So we need to keep on tapping into that. I wrote, nurture your trust, guys. We have to start to, like you work on your courage, you start to work and nurture this, you know, your muscles, start to build trust. But finally, the most imperative thing is bring love to work. You've got to start to realize that love doesn't only belong at home. We have to, all of us do that.
Guys, I have my last slide also ready, and mine is very simple message. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. I would like to sum up with that. Recalibrate your plans, right? And bake in flexibility into those plans, because we are on shifting sands. Nobody knows the answer, what's next. But if we are well prepared, we'll be able to handle whatever comes our way. On that optimistic note, it's time to thank our speakers. John Scott, thank you. I owe you 1. Arnaud, I owe you 2. And Rajiv, I owe you 3. It's been an amazing panel. Our audience, thank you for investing your time with us. And I do want to promise you that we are seriously considering to keep what's next going, right? In terms of planning another webinar. So stay connected, stay tuned with onlywebinars.com. That's where we'll be announcing our future activities. And there'll be a recording of this webinar available tomorrow for those who could not make it today. And finally, time to say bye. Can I request all our speakers to just hold up their final slide on the screen? So we have somebody who's going to help us with this slide. So this is our final takeaway for our audience. John Scott, where's yours? Right, infinite versus finite. I get that.
Okay.
So thank you, audience. You've been amazing, very participative. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon on the other side. Bye for now.